Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Lynchburg. We are glad you are here. Whoever you are, whatever your beliefs, whatever your age, and whomever you love, you are welcome here. As we work together for justice, compassion, and peace, we also acknowledge with humility that our buildings sit on Monacan land. My name is Kim Senna, and I've been active in this church for almost 19 years. If you are with us for the first time, we are glad you chose to be here this morning to participate in the service for this church community that we love. If you would like to receive our monthly newsletter and Friday email updates, please fill out the virtual visitor card found on our website, uulynchburg.org, under the Sunday services, or fill out the yellow card found in the back chair in front of you and place it in the offering basket during our offering. Please take note of any announcements in the bulletin. If you are on Zoom, you can find them in the Friday e-news. It is so wonderful to be able to have social time after the service for those of us in the building. Thank you to those who bring snacks for us. We also ask those who stay to the end to chat to please hang around for 15 minutes to help clean up. That keeps our cleanup from being a burden on 2 or 3 folks every week. This is another way we can care for one another. Our congregation is experiencing numerous COVID cases right now. Please consider remasking during services. This will affect our town hall meeting. Since COVID and illness has struck, our town hall meeting will be next week, January 22nd, rather than today. At this meeting, we will consider changing the name of our congregation. An important email is headed your way. One project the Connections Committee has worked on for several months is the development of community groups, which are large neighborhood groups of members to enable us to develop friendship and support one another. Please take time to read the email you received and prepare for a Zoom gathering of UU folks who live fairly close to you. Now, I invite us to release our worries about the world and our own lives as we enter into the service by taking some slow, calming breaths. As we light the chalice of our faith, we share these words together. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, O Spirit of life. I invite us now to rise in body or spirit as we share together hymn number 8, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit.
In the sky, song in the of the ripples to the sky. What to give you, what to call you, who am I? I am empty, time flies from me. What is time? Dreams eternal, fears infernal haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. Father Spirit, take our hearts. Take our breath and let our voices sing our parts. Take our hands and let us work to shape our art.
Thank you, and be seated. And I'd like to invite all of those who are young at heart or young in age to come join me up here. Good morning, everybody. I'm really glad to see y'all. Oh, you brought a baby. And you're making a piece of art. And is that a yo-yo I see? Wow, that looks fun. So I want to tell y'all a story today. And it's about somebody who lived a long, long, long time ago. And when he was about your ages, well, y'all may be older. Is anybody 4 or 5?
I'm 4.
Okay, you're 4.
I'm 6. I'm 5.
Well, this was,
I'm 6 too.
okay, well, this was when a man named Theodore Parker was younger. So he really loved in the summertime to walk out in the woods and the fields, because he lived out in the country on a farm. And one day he was walking along and he found a really good stick to play with. I don't know about you, but I really like finding fun sticks to play with. No, you don't like sticks?
No, because if you play with them, you might get poked in the eye with them.
That's very true. You have to be careful. And let me tell you this story about involving the stick. So he was, thank you. Well, I'm going to tell you about this necklace in just a sec. So he was walking through the woods and, playing with the stick, being careful not to poke his eye out. And he came across a little stream. And you know how the water bubbles and makes noises? And there was a log, and what do you think in the warm sunshine was sitting on that log? Close to a turtle. Yes, a turtle was sitting on that log just sunning himself. No, this wasn't the turtle. No, but this is my favorite turtle. Thank you. So the turtle was just sitting there, and you know what? So this boy's name was Theodore Parker. And he was like, he had seen some of the older boys, like older than 6, like bigger. And they would sometimes hit animals with their sticks, or they'd do something like knock a turtle off the log. And because because Theodore was younger, he wanted to, copy them. Because sometimes, even when people are being not nice and they're sort of bullying other people, you think, well, they're bigger, so I should do what they're doing. So Theodore picked up his stick and he started to hit the turtle. And something in his mind and heart made him realize this wasn't right. That would have been a really bad thing to do, wouldn't it have? And so he put his stick down and wondered what that little voice inside his mind and heart was. And so he walked home, and when he got home, he asked his mother. Well, first he told her about what he was thinking and what he almost did, and he told her about that little voice that told him what was the right thing to do. Huh?
Leave the turtle alone.
Exactly. Have y'all ever sort of wondered, like, oh, I want to do this because everybody else does it, and then you realize, no, it's not the right.
That's God. That's Jesus talking, saying that's not right. You should never do that.
Well, and what Theodore's mother called it is his conscience. That's a big word, but that's the little voice right from wrong. And our parents teach us what's right and wrong, and we learn about what's right and wrong in our Sunday school classes. But when we're out in the world, we need to take care of that conscience. And what Theodore's mother said was, your conscience is your moral compass. In other words, it helps you know what's right and what's wrong. And if you always listen to that, then it will never steer you wrong. Yes, Nora?
I don't understand.
Okay, so thank you for asking that, because those are some big words, aren't they? Have you ever thought about doing something that you know your moms would not want you to do?
No.
Well, I used to have some of those thoughts when I was little, like I really wanted to do something, but I know I wasn't supposed to do it. And I often chose to not do the wrong thing because there was just something inside my head and my heart that said, no, I don't want to do this. I want to do the right thing. And that's what Theodore's mother was telling him, that we have this voice inside us that helps us know what's right and wrong, and we should follow that. And Theodore followed that. And he grew up to be a person, because he lived in the time when there were enslaved people in this country, and he always helped work to free enslaved people. And he would say prayers to Mother, Father, God, because he supported this bigger vision of what God or the sacred was, and he supported women's suffrage 100 years before women got the right to vote. And it was all because he, throughout his life, listened to that little voice that reminded him what was right and what was wrong. And he helped take care of all sorts of people who may have been ill or didn't have the rights that he had. And so I think that made him a very good and special person. And we all have that within us. So as you go to your classes, I'd like for you to think about some of the things that you can listen to in your own mind to help you do good things in the world. And let's sing them to their classes.
So today in both of our religious education classes, we're going to be learning about how the choices we make can help us find our center. So we are going to have a lot of fun this morning. And I would like to know if Leah and Nora would like to be our chalice sliders this morning. Yeah? All right, let's go over here. No, you can finish it later. Can you bring it with you?
Finish.
Okay. Y'all have fun. And are we singing this a cappella, folks? Thank you, Trudy, for finding that. You know, what I love is our children know it's okay to say, I don't understand, and I need to develop my own beliefs, which is one reason I continue to be a Unitarian Universalist. Goodness. So this morning, we take an offering of our gifts for the work of this community, both within this building and in the larger world. Gifts given in love and hope continue a cycle of love and hope.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
It is the tradition of our community that we share together the joys and the concerns that are part. As we sit here grateful for the life we've been given, for wonder and mystery that abounds all of it around us,
We're keenly aware that there are times when our hearts are heavy, when loved ones are ill in mind, body, or spirit. May they find healing and wholeness, either in this life or in that which is to come. We hold up the blessing of children who teach us to re-engage with the wonder and mystery of life. May we find spaces in our lives to consider all that is part of who we are in the search for truth and meaning. We give thanks for this community that sustains us and reminds us that we have work to do in the world so that we may help build the beloved community. This we ask in the name of all that is sacred. Amen.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of love and the sons of great vision. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love.
beautiful pieces also in the teal hymnal. I selected this wonderful rendition of Dr. Yusei Barnwell's We Are because it reminded me of the relationship between our own search for where we center our lives and the legacy we inherit from our ancestors. Those who came before us can help us understand how to hold the taproot of our lives steady no matter what storm comes into our lives. And there are others of us, maybe separated from family, who learned that we needed to put our roots down in different soil than our ancestors. Each of us needs to discern during our lifetimes what is healthy for our souls so we can find the soil that will nurture us. This is true in life, and it becomes true as we grow in our spiritual and religious understanding. There comes a point for many of us, maybe it happens several times in our lives, when we feel uprooted, when we realize that what we believed no longer feels right and we just can't believe it anymore. It's like a snake needing to shed its skin. There's discomfort and itching and a visceral understanding that we've outgrown our skin that fit us perhaps until this very moment. Now we must begin to scrape off our worn out beliefs as we figure out what still gives us grounding. That stage of transformation can often be unsightly and awkward. Perhaps we feel like we're the only ones who are dissembling our faith. In case you haven't figured it out yet, this is a place where we are encouraged to lose our faith. Here it is safe to look at the faith we've outgrown. We're all looking for fertile soil with those who just might be experiencing a similar transformation. Our searches are similar and unique at the same time. My own search took me to several faith traditions after I left the United Methodist Church, and it wasn't until I found Unitarian Universalism that I felt I could finally put down roots and be nurtured in mind, body, and spirit. Some of you may have a similar feeling. Yet, as special and unique as we are, this isn't a new quandary, nor are we the only people who have lost faith in order to find it once again. In this age, we are grappling with realities that our forebears, our ancestors, could not have predicted. Yet some of the queries about human nature and the religious search for meaning are present in every generation. So at times I find myself looking back at our Unitarian and Universalist ancestors as my role models. One of those role models for me is the great abolitionist, theologian, and Transcendentalist minister Theodore Parker, who I talked to the children about. I find in his life a person who, like us, kept searching, deconstructing his beliefs, and finding deeper meaning. His theology evolved throughout his life and ministry, just as ours will evolve. This morning, I'd like to share a bit about Theodore Parker's life and influence, and I promise not to preach for an hour like he did in his day. Sermons were more entertainment because they didn't have Wi-Fi or Netflix in his day. And I'm very grateful for the writing and research of the Reverend Dr. Rosemary Bray McNatt and the Reverend Carl Gregg, whose scholarship on Theodore Parker provided ideas and insights for this sermon. So Parker lived from 1810 to 1860 and was an American Unitarian minister, theologian, scholar, and social reformer who was very active in the anti-slavery movement. He was truly a brilliant person. He spoke 20 languages, and his congregation in Boston was the largest in the country at that time. He would have 3,000 people in church on Sunday morning. I probably need to work on my sermons for us to get that big, but question the traditional beliefs of the Christian dogma in his day. Like Ralph Waldo Emerson and other New England Transcendentalists, Parker believed in one's ability to gain intuitive knowledge of God or the divine. And his language was much more traditional than we use today. But he differed from the Transcendentalists in the way he tempered his romanticism with rationalistic and scientific interest. So his influence, even though he sounds much more traditional, the kinds of questions he asked himself are very similar to some of the questions that we have today. Parker was passionately religious and believed deeply in the existence of God and the immortality of the soul. And he did this without being theologically conservative. And really, he was anything but conservative. His commitment to social justice and political reform, of whom we are, that's our legacy as Unitarian Universalists. He was deeply rooted. All of those beliefs came from his commitment to liberal Christian faith. And as I first became a Unitarian Universalist and sort of was in awe of Theodore Parker, there were really two stories that made him my UU hero. The first was the story about how Theodore Parker on Sunday mornings would bring his guns and put them on top of the pulpit on Sunday morning. Which when I heard the beginning of that story, I was like horrified, since we're now, a Second Amendment sanctuary city. But I won't go there. I'm not going to get political. So he brought his guns and put them on the pulpit because he had in his congregation every Sunday enslaved people who had gotten to freedom in Boston. And there were also slave hunters who might come into a sanctuary. And so that was to protect the most vulnerable people in his congregation. The second story that endeared him to me was the fact that he's the first person known to pray to Mother, Father, God, which, modern biblical discoveries now really talk about the sacred feminine, but that was extremely radical in his day. And he supported women's suffrage almost a century before women got the right to vote. Parker's ardent search for truth was greatly influenced by the German biblical scholarship of the 1800s. He critically examined biblical texts, and that stretched his mind and heart and made him question the Christian dogma
in which he was educated. As he continued to explore, he came to understand that there are really two types of beliefs that people need to distinguish between. They're beliefs about who Jesus was that are core or permanent in Christian thought, and there are other beliefs that are transient, that change over time. And it was this clarity about the differentiation between these beliefs that Parker helped push Unitarian thought beyond and outside mainstream Christian belief and toward other understandings about who Jesus was and the nature of the divine. This was the focus of his sermon, The Transient and the Permanent in Christianity. And this sermon articulated his increasingly liberal theology, particularly in regard to his view of the Bible. And now keep in mind that he was preaching this and stretching his beliefs in way before Darwin published On the Origin of Species. So Parker was pushing the theological boundaries for his time. Even for the liberal Unitarians in the 1830s and 40s who were divided on questions like, was Jesus truly a worker of miracles? Was the Bible supernaturally inspired, the supernaturally inspired Word of God? Was God a loving Father, as Parker insisted, or a set of impersonal laws to be found everywhere, as Emerson believed? And some of these issues may seem quaint to us today, but the energy in his day surrounding these questions both formed and shattered relationships and disrupted collegial friendships among Unitarian ministers. By 1841, Parker openly disputed the miracles described in the New Testament, which seemed to many of his colleagues to call Jesus's authority into question. And I have not included here Thomas Jefferson's editing of the New Testament to cut out all of the miracles. Parker was in Boston, Jefferson was in Virginia. One well-known statement in his sermon on the transient and the permanent of Christianity, which made him a heretical prophet, Parker identified not the doctrines of traditional Christianity, but the pure religion of Jesus as permanent, meaning absolute pure morality, absolutely pure religion, the love of man, excuse the sexist language, the love of God without acting without hindrance. The only creed he believed that Jesus's teachings laid down is there's one God. In his sermon, Parker emphasized the need to apply reason and logic to traditional religious beliefs. Now, we take that for granted, but it was pretty radical in his day. And he shifts attention from believing things about the person of Jesus to the truth of Jesus's teachings. In Parker's words, it's hard to see why the great truths of Christianity rest on the personal authority of Jesus more than the axioms of geometry rest on the personal authority of Euclid or Archimedes. Parker's point is that Jesus's teachings were either true or false on their own merit, regardless of who said them. That wasn't well received in his day.
faithful to the religion of Jesus and not the religion about Jesus, Theodore Parker's journey brought him into a deep religious engagement in political and social action, not in spite of his faith, but because of his faith. I mean, we sort of assume that now, that we are Unitarian Universalists and we need to be active in creating social change. But it wasn't necessarily that way in Parker's day. Theodore Parker may have done more to establish our justice-seeking heritage than any single minister of the 19th century, but he did so struggle to understand the sacred, the divine, God, whatever framework you want to use, and thus making him as much as a Unitarian heretic today as he was in his own time. Parker's commitment to the use of critical thinking and intuitive insights in one's spiritual search helped free Unitarian Universalism to encompass our spiritual search to be grounded in both the mind and heart. And he helped influence the philosophy of some of our greatest leaders. In 1846, Parker used a phrase about the importance of government of all, by all, for all. This wording influenced and inspired the phrase government of the people, by the people, for the people in President Lincoln's conclusion to his Gettysburg Address. Other great Americans were influenced by Parker. You may have heard, if not this quote, this idea: I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but a little way. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by experience of sight. I divine it by conscience. Even as an adult, he was mindful of that conscience. And from what I see, I'm sure it bends towards justice. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose life we celebrate tomorrow, shortened that quote to the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. That version from Dr. King was chosen by President Obama to weave into the rug in the Oval Office, but its origins lie with Theodore Parker. Today, the questions we ask about faith are made within a much broader framework of belief. Theodore Parker, the seeker, the abolitionist, the transcendentalist, was one of the thinkers of our faith who helped us move beyond traditional Christianity as the only foundation for our faith. He started with one source, the Judeo-Christian heritage, and we have 6 sources. He helped us find a path along which we can journey to find our own center for our beliefs and a community that will nurture our questions and our commitment to love, peace, justice, and hope. If he were here today, I think he would celebrate the freedom we enjoy within progressive religion, and he would encourage us to not hold back in asking the hard questions of ourselves, one another, and our faith tradition. Parker challenges us with each new generation to let go of what is transient, that is, what's become obsolete, but to hold on to the community, our covenant, our convictions that resonate as authentic as we discern the center of our faith and belief. And Parker left us with a quote, which I think all of you have heard, and it gives focus to his understanding of faith and can guide us to the future. Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual, works of love. And in that spirit, let us rise in body or spirit to share hymn number 145, As Tranquil Streams. And Emily will be back with us next week.
As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free. Free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed. Free from the social code that fails to serve the cause of human need. A freedom that reveres the past, but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
We extinguish the flame of our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And our final benediction, how can I do anything other than Theodore Parker? And I share his words again. Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual, works of love, its profession of truth, divine living. Blessed be.
Thank you for being with us today, and thank you for being with us on Zoom. Blessings.